Coy Calloway Hundley worked at Slide Lock Tools in Alcoa, Tennessee on October the 7th, 2003. At approximately 9 or 10 a.m., Kimberly Cunningham drove into the business's parking lot and asked some of the employees to tell Coy to come outside. The employees followed her instructions, and then Coy approached the driver's side door of Kim's automobile. When Kim spoke to him, she seemed normal. Witnesses said they neither heard Kim or Coy in their conversation. Then suddenly, Kimberly started shooting out of nowhere, and Coy shouted, "Don't do this." Kimberly shot Coy 3 or 4 times while he tried to run away. He then fell beside a truck. Kim got out of her car, cursed him, and shot him a few more times. Witnesses testified that they saw Kim say, "I told you, you son of a bitch, I'd kill you." Kim then turned around, looked very angry, returned to her car, and left. Witnesses then called 911, and in today's story, it's not about the who, the what, or the how. Today's story is about the why. Mr. Williams was an employee at the same location who knew Kim. He testified that he never told the police officers that Kim pointed the gun at everyone there. However, in his police statement, he stated that she was trying to hit anybody that got around. He testified that Kim had previously told Coy that his son, who is Kimberly's nephew, had molested her youngest daughter and her son. Does the why now seem justified? Comment, tell me what you think. Mr. Williams also admitted that he stayed at the Coy's house on several occasions and that he saw Kim's youngest daughter and son visiting their aunt and cousins. Mary Catherine Gibson said that on October the 7th, 2003, she was employed at Resource Associates located across the street from Slide Lock Tools, and that she heard shots when she was on the way to the business mailbox. Miss Gibson observed a man who had blood on his shoulder lying on the ground, and she heard a woman yelling at the man from her automobile, calling him a stupid son of a bitch. Miss Gibson ran to her office and called 911, and while she was on the phone, she heard more gunshots. Miss Gibson testified that she neither saw Kim with a gun nor saw her exit her automobile. After the shooting, she did observe Kim's automobile stop at a stop sign, wait signal, and drive off. Miss Gibson testified that Kim never pointed the gun at her and that she did not see anyone else outside Slide Lock Tools except Coy. Now, when the police arrived, Knox County Sheriff's Lieutenant Mike Grissom stated that Kimberly turned herself in at the Knox County Sheriff's Department, saying that she was involved in a shooting. The police officer asked Kim for her name and identification and whether he could search her purse. Kim cooperated, and Lieutenant Grissom found a nickel-plated revolver in the purse. At that point, the Knox County Sheriff's Department contacted Blount County law enforcement personnel and learned of a shooting in Alcoa. Another female officer searched Kim's person, and then that officer and Lieutenant Grissom escorted her to an interview room. Lieutenant Grissom testified that while in the elevator, Kim started crying. She said that her heart hurt because he assaulted her 10-year-old baby. Lieutenant Grissom testified that Kim seemed dazed and confused. He said it was almost like she didn't understand or didn't hear what I was saying. Also, Kim could not remember where she had parked her car. However, police officers later found it in a parking garage near the sheriff's department. After Lieutenant Grissom placed Kim in the interview room, he had no more contact with her. Kim and her vehicle were transferred to the Alcoa Police Department. Lieutenant Grissom also confirmed that Kim was not aggressive and was compliant. He also stated that she said she was involved in a shooting, not a murder. Interesting distinction. Knox County Sheriff's Officer Shelley Sherrill was asked to search Kim on October 7, 2003. Officer Sherrill testified that it appeared Kim had been crying, and she started crying again once they got in the elevator. Officer Cheryl said that Kimberly said that her heart hurt and she was crying for her children, not for herself. Officer Cheryl reported that Kim seemed upset but distant. She was not hysterical or loud. Alcoa Police Sergeant Detective Terry McGill also responded to the October 7, 2003 shooting as slide lock tools. He took measurements, drew sketches, and collected evidence from the scene. While at the scene, he learned that Knox County Sheriff's officers had transported Kim to the Alcoa Police Department. The Knox County officers also delivered Kim's purse, which contained a .38 caliber handgun and a permit to carry the weapon. At approximately 10:30 a.m., Detective McGill interviewed Kim. During the interview, Kim became pretty much hysterical. However, she was not violent and cooperated. Detective McGill said that when asked about drug use, Kimberly admitted that she was taking Zoloft and Klonopin, which were prescribed by her doctor. Detective McGill also stated that at times, Kimberly put her head in her arms as she talked. He also inquired about the child abuse allegations that Kim's children made against Coy's son, and Detective McGill testified that at the time, no allegations had been proven one way or the other. Detective McGill also testified that officers searched Kim's vehicle and they found the .38 caliber empty shell casings and a box of ammunition. Detective McGill reported the gun was a 5-shot revolver and no speed loader was found in the automobile. The police officer observed Kim and that at the time she was hysterical but not agitated. He also said that Mr. Williams, after interviewing him, told him that Kim shot him and she also shot at other people. Detective McGill testified that Kim's handgun permit only listed an expiration date and no issue date, although he identified a gun safety course certificate which stated Kim completed the course on August 4, 2003. Now regarding Coy's autopsy, Dr. Darinka Malesonich Polchan testified that she completed his autopsy on October 8, 2003. She said that Coy's blood tested negative for drugs and alcohol. The same doctor said that Coy received 8 gunshot wounds and she recovered 4 of the bullets from the body. 4 of the 8 shots were to the head, and 3 of these were serious wounds that would incapacitate the victim and lead to death. Of the other 4 potentially survivable gunshot wounds, one was to Coy's right shoulder, another to the upper back, one to the right forearm, and the 4th to the upper chest. Finally, the doctor testified that some of the wounds would be consistent with someone standing over a victim and firing. The doctor went on to say that none of the shots were fired from close range. She also testified that there were no signs that the victim was a drug or alcohol abuser, which did not mean that he was not an actual user. Then, Kim's son testified on her behalf that he and his sisters would go to Coy's house approximately every weekend. And before I continue the story, the names were redacted. So the son that was abused, I'll refer to him as just the son, and the sister that was abused, I'll just refer to her as just the sister. Now, one of the sisters knew Mr. Williams because Mr. Williams would be at Coy's house on the occasions that he would visit. The sister testified that several of Coy's friends, including Mr. Williams, called themselves bonfire buddies and would hang out by the bonfire, drinking alcohol and smoking weed. She went on to say that he never told anyone about the bonfire buddies, not even his mother or father. Now in July 2003, while at a McDonald's restaurant, the son told his mother that his older cousin, who is Coy's oldest son, who lived with Coy, had sexually abused him. The abuse began when he was 6 or 7 years old and ended on his 11th birthday. He testified that when he told his mother, she would not stop crying. The son had told no one else. After he told his mother, he and his sisters were not allowed to visit Coy's house. He also testified that on the morning of October 7th, 2003, the house was unusually quiet as he and his sisters got ready for school. He said that they typically played loud music and that his mother normally talked frequently as she motivated them to get ready. However, on October 7th, his mother hardly talked. Kim drove them to school, as she frequently did, yet she did not talk, tell jokes, or play the radio as was typical. After school, he got home via the school bus. The son mentioned that when he spent the night with his cousins, his grandmother or his mother took him there. After he told his mother of the abuse in July 2003, he went to child help and spoke with the female. He did not tell her what happened because he was embarrassed. However, he did tell a male worker about the abuse. He did not tell his mother and father about the abuse at the time then because he was embarrassed and he was afraid of how his cousin would react. Kim's youngest daughter testified that in July 2003, Kim constantly asked her why her personality had changed. According to the son, her mother had been asking her these questions for months. The daughter then told her mother in July 2003 that her cousin had been molesting her. The abuse started when she was 9 or 10 years old, and she had not told anyone about the abuse up to that point. She said that when she told her mother, Kim started crying and blamed herself for what happened. After telling her mother, she also went to see a counselor at Child Help. She also went to Peninsula Hospital and was treated for depression. When she was released from Peninsula Hospital, she returned home to a newly decorated bedroom, compliments of her parents. However, she continued to act strangely, and then Kim continued to question her. She testified that on October 6, 2003, she blew up and told Kim that she didn't know everything. That night, she told her mother that she had been having dreams about Koi but didn't go into any details. She then went to sleep and woke up on October 7th with her mother staring at her. At this point, she told Kim about the 2 times that Koi had molested her. She testified she told Kim that when she was 9 years old, she went to the Koi's house to spend the night with her cousins. Koi was hosting a bonfire, and at one point, she went inside Koi's trailer alone to watch television. Koi came inside and asked her to come to his bedroom. He then asked her to take off her clothes, but she refused. Koi took off her pants and pulled her underwear down to her ankles. He left her purple Little Mermaid t-shirt on. And I know he's no longer alive, but what a sick bastard. Koi then touched her breasts and penetrated her vagina. The sister testified that after the assault, she did not want to visit his home again. She testified that she was scared and blamed herself for what happened. However, her aunt called and wanted the sister and brother to visit for their younger cousin's birthday. The aunt, of course, knows nothing. During their visit, the aunt had to go to the store, and the siblings and their younger cousin wanted to go also. But due to the limited space in the automobile, the sister had to stay behind with Koi in the house. She went into her cousin's bedroom to play video games, and then Koi entered the room and took off all of her clothes except her socks. He again touched her breasts and penetrated her. Koi then made her perform oral, and then he performed oral on her. He stopped when his oldest son walked into the room. After that day, Koi's oldest son started molesting the brother, and the brother told Kim these details on October the 7th, and Kim was devastated, sad, and started crying. Well, of course. The sister rode to school with the other sister, as she normally did, and went to a friend's house after school. The sister went on to say that her older cousin began molesting her when she was 9 or 10 years old, and he did not stop until she was 13 or 14. She had never told anyone about this abuse until she told Kim in July of 2003. She did not tell Kim sooner because she was scared of her older cousin. She also did not tell her mother about Koi assaulting her until October the 7th because she was scared of him. The sister started that when she went to Child Help, she talked about the abuse from her cousin, but she failed to tell the counselor about the abuse inflicted by Koi because she had not told Kim about it. Also, she was scared, was not comfortable talking to a stranger, and was not there voluntarily. Now, during the trial, Kim testified that she grew up in South Knoxville and had married her husband at 15 years old. They worked hard, bought a house, and raised 3 children in Knox County. She testified that her sister had been with Koi, although they never married, since Kim was 13 years old. Her sister and Koi had 2 boys. Kim testified that she and her husband had more money than her sister and Koi, and Kim gave them money on several occasions. She said that Koi spent his money on alcohol, drugs, and gambling. Kim testified that her daughter was very outgoing and active. However, she noticed her daughter would come home from school and fall apart and cry. She would throw fits of rage and bouts of anger. Kim questioned her daughter about her behavior, and in July 2003 stated that her daughter told her that her older cousin had been molesting her. Therefore, Kim then went and spoke with the brother, while they were alone at McDonald's restaurant, if the older cousin had been molesting him as well. Once she learned that he had been abused as well, she called the Knox County Sheriff's Department and reported the abuse. The Sheriff's Department began investigating. She then took the children to child help. Kim told Coy about the allegations in July. She testified that she was angry and hurt, but she wanted the older cousin to get treatment. Coy did not believe her and encouraged her to drop it. He also threatened to burn Kim's house down with her children inside. Thus, Kim became afraid, and in August she bought a gun and obtained a gun permit. After the daughter was released from Peninsula Hospital, she still had problems. She would say, "Mama, you just don't know everything." On October the 6th, she told Kim that she had been having dreams about Coy. Kim was confused and inquired about the nature, but the daughter shut her down and went to sleep. Kim stayed in her daughter's room that night, and that morning she told Kim that Coy had assaulted her twice. This is when she told Kim the full details of the assaults. Kim testified that she was in total shock and heartache. She felt that she was an unfit parent and she blamed herself for letting her children go to Coy's house. Kim testified that she had to speak with Coy, so after taking her son to school, she drove to his work. She testified that she kept imagining Coy savagely assaulting her daughter and her daughter crying. When she arrived at Slide Lock Tools, she asked Mr. Williams to tell Coy to come outside. Coy came to the driver's side door and he told Kim, "Don't bring this shit to my work." He's referring to the previous conversations and the previous allegations of assault. She informed Coy that her daughter informed her that he had assaulted her. Coy stepped back. He started laughing. He looked at her and he said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And Kimberly, during the trial, then told the jury, "This is where I lost myself. I just heard gunshots and then I heard screaming, but I didn't know it was me." She testified that she did not remember shooting the victim. The next thing she remembered was talking to a lady at the Knox County Sheriff's Department. She testified that she had an appointment with the investigator in charge of her children's abuse investigation at 1 p.m. that day. Kim further testified that she did not remember Lieutenant Grissom or Officer Sherrill at the Sheriff's Department, but she did remember riding in a police car and talking to Detective McGill. Post-traumatic stress, I guess, maybe? Kim also testified that on October the 7th, she took the prescribed dosage of her depression medications, which were prescribed to her on July the 5th due to her despair over the abuse of her children. She further testified that due to this incident and the expense of her defense, she and her husband had to sell their house and file for bankruptcy. Finally, she testified that she felt sorry and hurt for her actions on October the 7th. Kim went on to say that she was not a violent person unless provoked. In July, after she learned of the abuse inflicted by Coy's son pulled up into Kim's mother's driveway. He blew the horn, made a noise, and spun his tires as he drove off. What a wanker. Kim felt that he was throwing what he had done in her face. Kim then hit the window of Coy's son's car with a stick, and she agreed that this was a violent action. Kim admitted that she knew that Coy took drugs, drank alcohol, and gambled. However, she did let her children go to Coy's house to visit their aunt and cousins. Kim also testified that her gun always stayed loaded in her gun purse, and her children knew not to get into that purse. She carried another purse with her belongings inside. In August, she moved her driver's license to the gun purse and started carrying it when Coy started threatening her. She testified that she normally left the gun purse in her automobile, but she could not recall whether she did so on the night of October 6th. She stated that she always left the ammunition in the automobile. Kim went into more detail about when she confronted Coy about the assault on October 7th. He laughed at her and he taunted her. She did not remember firing shots or reloading the gun. She said it all just seemed like a blur. Now, before I give you the verdict and what happened, let me go back to what I said earlier. What do you think her punishment should be? She finds out her kids are getting assaulted by someone, let alone family. What would you do? So on December the 19th, 2005, the jury found Kim guilty of voluntary manslaughter, which I think is fair in the strictest legal sense. At the sentencing hearing, Evelyn Hundley, Coy's mother, testified that her son's death devastated her family. She took custody of his younger son and his older son and is now married with a family. She said that Kim should have received the maximum sentence. From the mother's point of view of the victim, I can understand. She's not going to believe these allegations. So she's going to be like, you murdered my son, get your ass in jail. I get it. Kim's youngest sister testified on her behalf, stating that Kim's husband worked long hours to provide for the family and that Kim worked hard taking care of her children. Kim's sister also testified that Kim's remorse for what she had done was genuine and that her children would be lost without their mom. So Kim was sentenced to 4 years, but after an appeal, that sentence was reduced to 4 months. However, unfortunately, in June 2010, Kim E. Cunningham passed away. Now I can only review this as a parent myself. I don't think you can ever justify murder, and I don't want to say anything that justifies murder. But if ever there was a reason to push you over the edge, this is one of them. I mean, how dare you touch someone's kids? I think many of you share the same sentiment. Comment, tell me what you think.